Hi chat, how is it going? What's up folks? Folks in the chat. How we doing? How we doing? How we doing? How we doing? Good, bruh. Okay, cool. My friends, Ishtaarth and Devaiah. First of all, how are you liking the app? Second of all, do you see a hand button here? Can you press it so that I can take you on stage? Oh my god. I just want Devaiah and Ishtaarth to press it for now. I'll get you guys in later. I'll get the rest of you in later.
But guess who pressed it?
Okay. Intruders.
I'm done, dude. I did what I had to do. You can let go of me.
Okay. What's up?
What's up, guys? How's it going?
What's up with you, Ishtaarth? What is this DP? Are you
It's
are you
going good. I've been trying the app for the last couple of days, and I thought I'd start with a meme as my display picture. It was a bad choice, but I mean, we can start here, I guess.
clearly? Clearly. Okay, awesome. Good to have you folks back, or rather, Devaiah back. Ishtaarth, I think you stepping on this app for the very first time for a session. Devaiah, it's been a while. I think it's been a couple of months, and in that brief period, the last time we spoke about Buffy Larry and Anil Kapoor and all kind of ads. In those 2 months, or I think just a week after that chat, you rolled out probably the biggest or the most memorable ad campaign of 2021.
Well, you know what the funny part, Abhinav, was that last time when I was talking to you, it was between writing sessions of the 2021 CRED campaign. So we were writing, and then I got into the car, finished your live, and I went back, and then we started working again. So I think it's all you, and just like interacting with you kind of sparked all that magic. So that's all credit to you.
Fuck, dude! I didn't know. I didn't know it was because of the Avalon community that the Fed ads came in.
Totally.
Need to get the word out, guys. Chat, we need to get this word out. We're the guys behind it. Fuck. I didn't know until now. Okay, what's up? I'll quickly tell you, Devaiah. You know what happened last time? Last time when you came on, one thing happened. First of all, when I hosted you, there was a very specific clout of people that were congratulating me that, oh my god, Devaya is a good catch. Someone used this word. They were like Devaya is a good catch. What a catch
Wow.
that you have Devaya on the platform. And it was coming from a very specific community, okay? Community of folks. One of them, one of those guys was Ishtaarth. And I realized, oh my god, Devaiah's like, okay, I mean, pardon my ignorance, but I've known you because of AIB and I've known you because of CRED. But there is a sect of people that kind of, just a minute, let me take care of certain trolls in the chat.
Always.
Last time we didn't have trolls either, no?
No, so you've grown. Like, I think that's a good sign of an app going big is when you get people shitposting in comments.
Just a minute. Let me quickly make a mod. Varun, I'm making you a mod. Can you take care of this? I'm hoping you're in the chat. You're a mod now. Awesome. Okay, fantastic. Rakshita. Okay, Rakshita, I'll make you the mod as well. Pardon this, guys, but yeah, fun things happen with the scale kicking in. Rakshit. Hang on, Rakshit, dude, there are hard to find you here. But I'm hoping Varun will take care of this. Okay, awesome. Cool. So, Devaiah, for the audience, I'll just quickly, give Devaiah an intro, though he doesn't need intro. Devaiah wrote the most famous ad campaign series of 2020. That was CRED ads. the Bapi Lahiri, the Govinda, the Anil Kapoor, and when he was talking about the most famous ad series 2020 with us on Avalon Voices back then. He also wrote the most 2021 ka famous ad series that was the Indranagar Ka Gunda, and he's attributing part credit of that to us. Happily accepting that. Thank you so much. And Devaiah has a secret cult following amongst the advertising community in India. And Ishtaarth, voiced that to me very beautifully. Ishtaarth himself is a young genius. He's about 26, 27, has bagged awards like Cannes and, Kyoorius and Effies and, I don't know, 30 plus awards. Is the brands that he's worked with are like our badges of honors in itself. He's worked with OnePlus, he's worked with Uber, he's worked with Tinder, he's worked with Google, he's worked with YouTube, he's worked with whatnot, and he's a crazy genius. I've not come across anyone, whether old or young, as maniacally crazy about advertising and brand strategy as Ishtaarth. So Ishtaarth meet Devaiah, Devaiah meet Ishtaarth. Formally introducing.
Hi, Ishtaarth.
Hi, Dev.
Very nice meeting you. Just going through your bio when Abhinav sent me, today's link, and I was like, hey, these are all apps that I want to download or work on, and someone's already worked on everything. So very nice.
Same here. And aside from your notoriety in advertising, I'm such a big fan of 52. I've been reading it for over a year now, and I hope we get a couple of minutes to talk about that side of your work as well, because it's fascinating to me from a publishing and journalism standpoint. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you so much.
Folks in the chat, if you haven't read something from 52, you're missing out on some of India's best journalism. So highly recommended you go and check it out.
Okay, I think after Uber, Google, and a bunch of other brands, Ishtaarth is very good at advertising 52 also. So thank you so much. Thanks so much, Ishtaarth. Very kind.
No, thank you. I'm a huge fan and hope we have an awesome convo.
Yeah.
Awesome. You know what? At these points, I've done. I think I've done. This is probably the second session or second panel that I'm bringing you to Ishtaarth, right? Where it's been the three of us, or is it the third? It's the second.
Yeah, it's the second one. Yeah.
The previous one was with that European brand strategist. Okay, so eventually, actually, it's the third because we also did one with Julian Cole, right?
Yeah.
So what happens in the middle of this is the two guests that I host, they get so engrossed in the conversation that's at the point, because Ishtaarth is very 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 good with words, and he's very hospitable, if I can use that word, hospitable in his words and conversation, and it just becomes so beautiful that I sometimes just take 15 minute ka backseat and just hear the two guys talk. I'm hoping for something like that today as well, seeing the chemistry already. Okay, awesome, cool. So, Ishtaarth, what are your, before I get Devaiah's input on what went into writing Indranagar Ka Gunda, what are your thoughts of it? How did you tear it down? How did you feel about it? Because I've seen, on one of your blogs, you've torn down how CRED grew. And then CRED was famous for not doing ads for a long time. Kunal Shah would be going to all ad conferences and talking about how ads are not the way to grow. But during IPL, they kind of owned IPL. What did you think about the CRED campaign this time, 2021?
Yeah, there's this really interesting way of thinking about advertising campaigns. Advertisers tend to think of it differently, and consumers tend to think of it differently. Advertisers always want to do new stuff, like quarter after quarter, campaign after campaign. You want to just start with a clean slate. You want to start fresh. Because you want like a new playground to express your creative chops in some ways. So I thought it was super interesting that CRED doubled down on what it was doing in 2020. I think more than anything else, it silenced people who were wondering whether the 2020 campaign worked or not. And so that was my takeaway. Actually, that was the biggest takeaway for me.
How further do you break it down? I think they've continued with this series of how I have read this recently that If your content is the same blue pill that the society is telling you, then
Yeah.
it should be remembered. It's got to have that red pill. And when you see that red pill, you can't unsee it. If you see, Bappi Lahiri, Govinda, and Anil Kapoor being rejected for auditions, you can't
Yeah.
unsee. If you see Rahul Dravid doing, tamasha like it's Delhi Gurgaon ka flyover,
Yeah.
and then this happening in this happening in Bangalore, which is known to be a calmer city, you can't unsee it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of the appeal, and of course, like the brand has its own sort of aura. I think going into any advertising campaign that it sort of launches, so that is great brand building. I would sort of conclude with. I don't want to overthink it because it reduces its charm, as I wrote in the first go as well. Like, interestingly enough, I thought whether doing a breakdown would make sense again. But thankfully, the IPL was cut short, and we had some very, very fun and fresh takes on the CRED campaign from people who got interested in advertising because of the first campaign. So that was super cool for me to see. Honestly, I don't think I overthunk this one. This is when I took off my advertiser hat. So I'd love to hear from Devaiah.
So, the thing, the crazy part is like, I felt what I think is, worked is that we didn't have too much time to do this year's campaign or last year's campaign. It was all pretty much everything that happened in the last minute. So I don't think even we had time to put on any like branding hat or think about branding or think about overthink this whole thing. And the funny part is like in the team, no, like say I don't think Tanmay has ever worked in an ad agency. I don't think Puneet and Vishal don't have never done advertising in the past. And there's Nupur who briefly worked in advertising. So I think that really sort of helped because uh, there was no academic look at like the campaign. We were not like, okay, what is the brief? And like usually what happens when a campaign brief lands on the table, you look at like so many ways of attacking it. Where is this going to sit? Like, what is the reference point for this? So none of those conversations ever came up while brainstorming or thinking or writing. It was just like what we used to do. I mean, at AIB, it's just what is good content, and we just did that, and just make it there are a few things that it's a smart app, it's for smart people, so just keep the whole thing in English, and have little smarter jokes, no over explaining, and I think that was what we did, and we didn't think more than that while working on it. And also, like, it really helps that we got probably, I think, India's best ad filmmaker to do it, right? We got Ayappa to do it. And that, I think, for me is battle half won, right? Like, you give your material to the best person to execute it, and it'll only go one step above. So yeah, it was I would like to say it's sometimes lack of awareness is is always more surprising.
Yeah, I guess it is enviable when you have a pulse on what kind of content works. That I guess that's 90% of the battle won. So you're truly undermining your role over
No,
there.
but like I'll tell you what, like I feel like we get like over credited for this. I know Ishtaarth knows this, but like the role of a client, okay, in something like this, in a campaign like this, is just insane, right? Because I mean, I was in advertising from like hardcore advertising from 2008 to 2015, and I've worked with like all kinds of clients, and we know like coming up with a good idea is never a problem.
Yeah.
But I think for someone to buy into it, and after buying into it, not fucking it up, right? Like giving, like, every client at the beginning of the brief wants to be brave, right? Everyone is like, I want something bold, I want something path breaking, I want something revolutionary, and then you present that, and then they just take like then. So after they listen to ideas, like they just put 100 filters and kind of what do you say, like water down the whole thing. But here I think that's like crazy that we had a client who just didn't interfere, right? Like, what do you want? Okay, this is it. like these are the lines, like no nitpicking, like, hey, if we use this word, like does it connote that thing, like, sometimes advertising, because it's only 30 seconds, every second is over analyzed and sort of like a complete masturbation happens, but none of that took place over here. So I think like that was like another big win for us. So I think more credit to the client here.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I think like from campaign 1 and campaign 2, I'm just gonna call it that.
Yeah.
I think the client's role was so important that that you might almost miss it. I thought it was genius media planning and PR orchestration. Like I thought the whole thing was planned out so well. And while it might seem like wishful thinking for me as an advertising insider, I think like the client really pushed themselves to make sure that your great advertising added up to the brand, which is not necessarily always the case. So I think it was like genius in on all fronts, from creative, from media, from the client side as well. So all of those things matter so much more than just the creative device that we're using, and I think that's why it resonates with us so much.
Yeah, totally, man. Like I think, so many things here, and I was surprised, right? The people who tweeted out the commercials, how they launched it,
Yeah.
and then even the YouTube description of most, YouTube description of all ads, like it's so well thought through and done by whoever was operating it on the client side. So they totally killed it, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, at this point, when you talk about the client, I feel like coming in, you guys, there's a popular word that's, that's doing the rounds of advertising or marketing circles always. They're just like, as a marketer, never work for a CEO who doesn't get marketing. And I don't know if you guys have had, an experience of working for someone or with someone who doesn't get marketing, someone, an authority figure in the organization. Yahan pe, when you talk about your client, Devaiah, CRED, Kunal Shah has a different level of consumer insight, no matter what industry he goes in, and especially his industry that he is going in. I remember this quote. I used to think to myself long back about 3-4 years ago. I was like, कि यार ये B2B की जो advertising होती है, B2B softwares or B2B SaaS products or B2B technologies, the way we advertise B2B, it's very information heavy. It's very information driven. It's very fact driven. And I was like, even though it's very heavy, it's a very cognitive overloady, yet the guys in B2B get paid well because the billing amount is big. You're selling about you're selling subscriptions of $5,000, etc. So everyone involved in the chain gets paid well. Then I used to think to myself that agency guys are usually underpaid, but agency guys are the guys who work for Zomato, Swiggy, Flipkart, etc. And I think these guys have a next level of understanding of consumer behavior and how to make things look sexy. But then there are these traditionalists and conservatives who say that B2B is done a certain way, it'll always be boring. Then I heard Kunal Shah was like, yeah, tech ko advertising or marketing karna aata hi nahi hai. टेक इकोसिस्टम को आता ही नहीं है. टेक इकोसिस्टम हमेशा एफिशिएंसी पे खेलता है. They always play on efficiency. We've made this faster, we've made this better, we've made we've made this that. Real advertising or real marketing, if you want to understand, you need to go speak with someone who's selling FMCG, who's selling bloody Nirma या Nirma का detergent powder या Tide detergent powder, क्योंकि वहाँ पे they explore a different dimension of human psychology, that is, instead of playing on efficiency, play on human status. टाइड ने, निर्मा ने, घड़ी डिटर्जेंट ने, इन सब ने एक केमिकल फॉर्मुलेशन को, एक डिटर्जेंट पाउडर को टाई कर दिया ह्यूमन के स्टेटस से. अगर ऐसा वाइट है तो टाइड है. And this is not, I don't think this came out of India, because Tide also nailed the Super Bowl ads this time. I don't know if you guys saw it. Tide, that was a Tide ad. So they've played this in India, they've played this everywhere. The Tide white is so beautifully done. You've bloody linked something as ordinary and as complex as a detergent powder to how your status is perceived in the society, and how the woman is feeling happy about her husband being reputed and being stared at in the most important places. What do you guys think about this? The FMCG versus how advertising is done in FMCG status wise and how it's done in efficiency wise.
See, I think I just feel that as human beings, right? Like we are more and more like we think more about ourselves than anybody else, right? So you just have to make people feel shitty, right? I mean, I'm sorry, like this is so basic, but it's just that, right? Like your whole advertising is just generally telling you that like you're not good enough. Right, even the ads that say that you're good enough comes from the place that you're good enough until you have this, unless you have this, right? So I think it's like a very basic FOMO creating atmosphere. And with respect to like say like a B2B advertising, right? What happens is you always feel you're talking to yourself, right? Like you feel that okay, it's business to business, I'm talking to somebody like me, so I don't have to be so interesting, like he'll just get it or she'll just get it. Whereas I think with B2C you're always talking to a particular audience and trying to make them feel a certain way. So I think that is why like I feel B2B advertising is kind of perceived to be boring, whereas B2C is more about just generally creating a sense of FOMO for people to feel like not so worth it to start investing in products to make themselves feel better, right? Like and that's why they say like if for example if a product is absolute necessity, you don't need advertising for it. Right, like you don't need advertising for Google. Like Google doesn't have to tell you that you are worth it or you don't know much. Like it just like works because the product is its own advertising. So any other way, like when it's like a washing powder or when it's like the world's first washing powder didn't need advertising, right? But like then what happens is when there is sameness of like all products are the same essentially, there's very little differentiating them, then you need to start playing with emotions to kind of make sure you kill it in the market. I think Ishtaarth will have a better take on this because he's into planning, and I think maybe Ishtaarth, you need to explain I don't know, like people here just what planning is so that they get which point of view you're coming from.
Yeah, so I think like taking from what Abhinav was, where Abhinav was going with his question and how you're thinking about it, I think if I just take a couple of steps back, we're in like an economic super cycle, right? Like in the 40s, in post-depression USA and things like that, the capitalist way of life was just getting off the ground. Like we didn't really know what the right aspiration was. The American dream with Jack Kerouac on in his car with no roof became aspirational like much later, and right now we're in this super cycle where we're moving out of an industrial economy to an internet first one. And every time we have this economic super cycle, we tend to see how advertising and marketing changes. I'll give you 2 or 3 examples. Coke's first line was keeps you refreshed and hydrated or something like that. It was super functional. They hadn't landed on this idea of happiness yet. There wasn't this one idea that Coke would sort of colonize the entire world and everyone would be drinking Coke. This idea wasn't so obvious 120 plus years ago. But then once new media started emerging, different brands started talking differently. Soap operas are actually content marketing for P&G soaps. They were called soap operas because that's what people were listening to the radio while they were washing their dishes or doing their chores. That was the original content marketing. And it doesn't come under advertising or that outright emotional push through what you're creating in a 30-second script, right? Michelin star guide was created by a tire company. A tire company is as B2B as it possibly gets because you're not speaking directly to the consumer, you're speaking to the distributor. So most businesses are actually B2B businesses because they rely on middlemen and traders to actually sell it to the end consumer. And so I think we're in this really unique time where all of advertising and marketing is reorganizing around a new idea of reaching their customer. Every time you have a new way to reach your customer, the entire industry shifts. So I think that's where we are, and we're seeing examples like Google. You mentioned that Google doesn't need advertising, but Google advertises a lot. And if it didn't, I possibly wouldn't have a job. So all of these and some of these things go unseen. They're almost invisible, but they play a super important role in making sure that these brands that are accessible to anyone at the tap of a button are actually revered beyond their features. So I mean, that's a monologue, but like I think these are two or three things that are happening that are much bigger than how we think about categories at large.
You know what? Devaiah spoke about sameness, and you eventually, Devaiah spoke that the first detergent powder wouldn't have needed advertising because तब तक वही था वो अकेला solution था और until sameness came in, that means more competitors came in with
Yeah.
similar, the need for differentiation wasn't there. That this concept also leads to category creation. Now people think about market ko usually, this is jargon that VCs and analysts and investment bankers and industry experts use के हम इस market में इस niche में हैं, we're in this market in this segment, they're somehow defining it financially. But I think this actual job of creating a category is done by the advertisers or is done by the marketing folks. You create a category, it's your marketing, it's your marketing teams or growth teams' job to find a category for yourself and place you there and make you the category leader. How does this entire thing work? Because from my understanding, it's more psychological than data driven. Whoever wants to shed some light on this, how do you create a category for your product and be a leader in it?
I just think like, the best example to take is religion. Okay, that is like an amazing B2C product, right? Because you generally have like this one abstract concept, and now you just have to sell this whole abstract concept to the world. And at the same time, there are so many other religions selling you the same thing. Everyone's selling you happiness, peace of mind, and all problems solved. So now how do you create categories over there? Right, so I think I feel like category creation, for at least for me, I mean, so just basic disclaimer here, I've never studied advertising, so I was just like I'm an engineer and I just got into advertising, so haven't read so much about advertising also. So
by the way, same with me and same with Ishtaarth. Ishtaarth's
amazing. That's great. I think that's why people with common sense rule advertising more than people with advertising degrees. Anyway, that's another topic. But generally, so coming back to your question, Abhinav, is how to create category. I just think. It's a very, very deep question. I feel it's a variable that involves, obviously feelings, and it's a variable that involves what the world is going through at that point in time and where you stand in the world, right? And then you just like sort of play with each other, like you play with people's feelings, and then you play with where you want to sort of position yourself, and then you kind of create that category by sort of creating a demand to that feeling. Right, I think I use too many words in like too many same words in many different sentences. But basically what I'm saying is that you just have to create demand in a particular way. Like I always look at it like this: what is the end feeling of this product? All right, like if I'm working on a campaign, I'm like, what do people have to feel? What do you have to make people feel when they get this product, right? And then just build everything around it. And sometimes those kind of feelings never exist, or you've not tapped into people to make them feel that way, right? Like imagine there was no luxury products in India before. Like luxury wasn't even a category before the 90s in India, right? Like very, very few people. But today luxury is like almost like in SECA cities, it's like the norm. So that's a very new emotion to play with in the 2010s or in the 2000s. So you just make people feel poor, and then a lot of making rich people feel poor is the biggest driver to getting them to start purchasing something that is luxurious. So I think it's a lot of playing with feelings. I think that's essentially what creates categories for me.
Ishtaarth.
Yeah, I think just to take from that again, I'm going to be taking a lot from what you guys are saying. In India, one of the best ways to go about category creation is simply to reduce the fragmentation that exists. Like in one category, you might have 5 different players in 5 different states attacking their 3 neighboring states to gain market share. Now, can there be one player that comes in and sort of organizes it completely? Talk about chips. The chips that we eat every day, like Lay's. Lay's was the first proper pan India uh, potato chips brand that sort of created the market as we know it today. And it's only now that we're hearing of companies like Balaji Chips going to IPO and to sort of expand all over India. We've seen so many examples of this. Like Tanishq is one standout example of creating the market for organized gold. Right? They're almost peerless in some ways of how they went about it. So I think it comes from like deep customer understanding in the market that you're playing in. It's always a good idea to create something that you want for yourself, and then to see people respond to it and sort of reorganize around your perspective on a particular category. Wherever there is pure motivation and there is an inclination to sort of expand your point of view, great brands are built on top of that. We were sort of thinking of CRED a whole lot, right? And who would you actually count as CRED's competition? I can't name one competitor for them, one direct competitor for them. Um, yes, they compete with banks, but they also work with banks. There's no product quite like CRED, and so that's why I also think their advertising tends to work so well, because they're creating something that's opinionated and they're trying to figure it out, and they're making bold moves in the process of creating this category altogether. So I think we've seen many great examples in post-liberalization India, where categories have been created from scratch, uh, out of nothing, and done really well, and become export quality, and become jewels of India in the process. Um, but yeah, I think like the best insights take on fears and desires of people. So thinking of it as a religion, thinking of it as a cult is not a bad way to do it at all.
Do you have a quick close anecdote that you might have used in any of the conferences or in any of your conversations before, that relates how religion adoption happened and how we continue to see these patterns around us? I feel that that'd be an interesting deep dive.
Yeah, but yeah, sure. I mean, I don't get invited to marketing conferences, so I've not spoken about these things. But generally, like I feel, religion is the one place that has, packaged fear and hope at the same time in both like positive and negative way, right? Like they make hope seem like, they take fear and make that a positive emotion, saying that, hey, you have to fear the Lord for good things to happen to you, right? And I just feel that when you're dealing in abstracts and you are trying to sort of what do you say, like you're trying to see, the best thing is you're selling something that doesn't exist, right? Like, and that is like the most fascinating thing about religion, because you have to just rely on marketing. There is no sales department over there, because there are no numbers. There is no product. It's just a pardon me.
And manufacturing cost is zero.
Exactly. So it is just like the whole thing, the whole industry is just built on marketing, right? And it's just about saying stories and making people generally, you just make people feel inadequate, right? You just make people feel that, you are not good enough on your own to solve a particular problem or your life's problem. And and exactly what generally happens even in most advertising, right? Like, I just keep coming back to that. You just make people feel inadequate, and then they will automatically, as a reflex action, kind of buy into something that makes them feel like a little, like, makes them feel a little better. And I think that's what all of, like, whatever consumerism, capitalism is, right? Like, do you really need like an expensive pair of jeans to step out? Like, do you really need to wear, like, like your Air Jordans to play basketball? Like, you don't. But you just overspend on these things because it makes you feel less adequate, right? Like, everything around you, the whole world around you is just telling you at all points you're not good enough. You get onto Instagram, you just see the best highlights of someone's life, and you just feel sad about it, right? You just walk out onto the streets, you look out on hoardings, just beautiful, good-looking people. You switch on your TV, just like even the loser in movies is played by a hero, right? So at all points, like, there is just continuous messaging across that you're inadequate, and that kind of, you internalize that emotion, right? Like, that I'm not good enough, and then you just keep buying into things that you think that will make you feel complete, and eventually you'll never feel complete. That's why you'll always be unhappy. Like, money will never solve your problem, right? But I think it's that exploiting that inadequacy, for me, is marketing.
Ishtaarth, do you agree?
Yeah, possibly not fully, because I'd like to imagine that there are some advantages to what Devaiah and I do all day long. So that's possibly the only point of view on marketing as religion. Of course, like, a lot of the brands that we look to as successful, they all use terms of endearment to talk about their customers, right? They talk about them as loyalists, they talk about them as fans, they talk about them as say, like, other people call them like cults and call them dash fanboy or whatnot. I mean, we see all this culture is perpetuating in a very strong way when it comes to crypto, for instance, where you have Bitcoin maximalists and you have people who are following Ethereum and believe that Ethereum is way better than Bitcoin for whatever reason. And you see how that tribalism sort of translates into our everyday actions as customers. So yeah, it is super important to think of it as a religion, but you do need, every brand needs its believers, like every brand needs its advocates to be able to reach that one extra advocate tomorrow. And of course, like, super, I think it is going out of fashion to think of brands as religions, because we want to be so opinionated, because every point of view has that opposite point of view, that brand managers don't secretly want to become cults in and of themselves, maybe. um, but to be able to clearly define their place in the market, and to be able to push that point of view through a product that hopefully satisfies a need that a lot of people have. I think that has been the biggest shift, that you don't start out wanting to build a brand that has this place in culture but doesn't really work as a business, whereas it's the other way around. You're able to build something that people want, and because enough people want it, you become, a popular brand, a well used brand, you become a part of pop culture, etc., etc.
Okay. I think on that note, I'm going to steer away from the topic of religion because that can get touchy, and I've gotten some feedback on WhatsApp that it was a little too touchy for certain people. But there's something that you said, Ishtar, that at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're building one advocate that can go and pass on the word and build another advocate. Kind of like religion, but we're not going to touch that in religion. You call it evangelism.
Yeah, evangelism. Even in brands have brand evangelists, right? Like, a lot of tech companies have technology evangelists to be able to pitch their technology as being better than other companies' technology, for instance. So we've seen, like, a lot of ripple effects of that kind of thinking even in the brand world. But yes, we won't touch on it. Sorry.
नहीं, evangelism से मुझे एक चीज याद आती है, that is how a lot of apps are growing, and we've briefly touched upon it that a lot of apps don't, or a lot of businesses don't need advertising to grow. They're growing purely via evangelism, and in industry we call evangelism referral or word of mouth. And I think Ishtaarth, you really dive deep into certain programs, referral programs. You've seen Google Pay. Google Pay, we barely saw any ads, yet Google Pay is on all of our devices. Similarly with Airbnb, I don't remember seeing Airbnb ads. Similarly, a lot of apps. I don't remember seeing WhatsApp ads either. So how does that play in? How does that dynamic play in where you don't need advertising and evangelism happens through your customers? Because when we were talking about B2B, there are B2B brands. I would call Slack a B2B brand. Slack is a B2B brand, and it didn't need any advertising to make it to our workspaces. So didn't Discord, for that matter. So didn't a lot of, so didn't a lot of brands. What's your take on that? I know Ishtaarth has a very structured take on that. What's your take on that, Devaiah? I'm very curious to hear that on brands that grow without advertising.
See, I think that is just products going viral. Like, very basic view, but like it's like when products go viral in offline world, it just becomes successful without any advertising, right? And that only happens, I feel, when it's just genuinely coming in and solving a whole problem that nobody else had solved in the past. Like, okay, we can always go back to like the washing powder thing. Okay, like right now, if you have to go back and start like a washing powder to wash your clothes, like that problem has been solved plenty of times. And yeah, of course there will be like a new innovation you can do with your product, but essentially you're entering the washing powder market only, right? But like when you come up with something like a WhatsApp, all right, like, or you come up with something like a Google Maps or a search engine, which is like, which just genuinely just solves a very big life problem. And yes, I know that like there might have been like another search engine before like Google came in, right? Like Yahoo also I think was making search, but you just like I think that is where you have your second movers advantage, right? People always talk about first movers advantage into the market, where the second movers advantage is like way crazier, right? Because you've seen the first mover and you've seen what mistakes they've made while solving a big life problem, and you just like make it a little better and you kill it. So I think when you're genuinely solving a life problem, you will go viral in often your product will go viral, where so you don't need so much advertising for it. Like that's just my take on it.
Ishtaarth.
Yeah, I totally tend to agree with that point of view. I think WhatsApp, one of the standout things that it solved for was SMS. With SMS, you couldn't share photos and videos. Like for a long time, that's what WhatsApp even looked like, just like your SMS app, but you could send photos and videos. I think that was super important for WhatsApp. But again, like, what is the mega trend? The mega trend is power to the people. The mega trend is like individuals can go from finding out about a brand to downloading a brand in 30 seconds to complaining about it in 45 seconds. So I think being able to go through a lot more services like this, by being able to like just explore and discover a whole lot more that's going on in the world, we've been able to become opinionated about brands without knowing that they're advertising to us in some ways. So yeah, wherever there is utility, I think Dropbox also started out by giving free storage online, which was very, very pricey. It was not cheap to be able to do it before Dropbox came in, and that was a matter of timing. Today, the 20th cloud player cannot use the same tactic that Dropbox used 12 years ago to gain a foothold in the market. And to Devaiah's point, there is this fabulous strategy in advertising and marketing, which is known as last is best, which is once a killer product enters the market, there's no reason for the next version of that same product to be created. No one is going out there and creating a new Google. No one is trying to create a new Facebook the same way it looks right now. No one is trying to create the new best smartphone, for instance, because we already have the best ones, or like the peak of what that category has to offer with us today. So everyone's turned their eyes on what's going to come next. So yeah, that's just a little bit on product-led growth and what its place is today. I think it comes from people being able to talk about it freely, have those interactions more often than they used to, and you don't have to go to a store to find out about something new.
And it's also internally, I think in organizations, it's also about the collaboration between the growth team and the engineering team, because you can't enable product-led growth when engineering and growth aren't as connected and as in sync. Because sometimes the developers fall in love with their own creation, and that tends to happen. That tends to happen with any creation that you ever create. I don't know. It's called the IK effect. Acha. Now, with this, I think we have about 10 minutes left, and the audience is bugging me to take questions. So I'm going to take a few questions, guys. You can ask to speak, and I'll randomly pick a few guys. And the stage will be yours to ask one question per person, okay? I'm letting Chai in. Yo, Chai. By the way,
Yes,
Chai.
hello everyone. How's everyone doing?
Oh my God, what an entry.
I'm always like this, no? Like know it by now over the
You've
course of
spoken
years.
to Devaya before, right?
What? I couldn't hear you. Sorry.
You've spoken to Devaya before, right?
Yes, we have. The first time he came on this platform.
Okay, awesome. Go for
Yes,
it.
and yes. Okay, so Mr. Devaiah and Ishtaarth, I have a question for you. So, how do you market in the edtech space when you have created something that is essentially starting a new category, or when you are starting a new category, or at the cusp of starting a new category? How do you approach marketing something that has never been presented to an audience before?
Hi Chai, I think the first thing you got to do is just sign with me, pay me a lot of money, and I'll tell you how to do it. Yeah.
Way to plug yourself, man. Let's go.
But okay, I think on a serious note, like I don't know, man. Like it's very difficult to answer that. Like if it's something that, like I said, no, it genuinely solves someone's problem, and then you've got a winner in your hands. So I don't know. I don't have anything else to add because it's a brief. Yeah. Yeah. I like Ishtaarth to take this.
Oh no, totally. But I'm gonna stop with like what I would make as like the first 5 slides of a presentation, maybe, which is anything in education is a huge thing to consider from a student's, parents, certification board standpoint. If you can get access to any one of those communities to be able to get your product out there, it might be super useful to consider. Obviously, the most uh, dramatic version of what we're seeing with edtech is what Unacademy, Byju's, and the rest obviously do. But if you want like a more considered take on how you can launch such a product, like Web Chutney is always open for business. So yeah.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Okay, fun. I'm gonna get the next caller in. I'm gonna get Rakshit in.
Hi Ishtaarth, hi Abhinav, hi Devaiah, what's up?
Hey, what's up?
Hello.
So I wanted to ask you this. So in our marketing colleague, Abhinav told us about that through that technology has now enabled brands to super segment and personalize their audience. So through that, now they must come to you with problem statements that are now segmentized and they must ask you that to personalize according to the different segments. So how do you first tackle that, and where do you get the reference points for that?
Such a good question, Rakshit. So this is honestly, this question I posed to the team like 2 weeks ago, because I genuinely don't have an answer for this because I'm struggling with it. What happens is, like, you take on a brief and then you realize that when you start cracking it, and the client keeps coming back to you like, hey, how do I speak to this particular person? How do I speak? So what has happened? Data has just made sure like you can go so super specific in terms of your targeting that it just becomes impossible to kind of like have an overarching thought, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure it's possible, but I'm personally struggling with that, because you just sit and you write for something, and then you're like, okay, now will this work for like a 24-year-old person in tier 2 towns? Obviously it won't, right? If you start writing for someone in Bangalore, how is it going to work for someone in Hunsur, right? Like, or someone in Mandya? It's not going to work. So I think this is going to be that battle between like performance marketing and brand marketing, right? Like, where like, I think these are like, technology has enabled so many things in marketing, but also it's made it so specific and so numbers driven and so much conversion driven that you want specific solutions at all points, but also you want to have like a very generic brand view. Like, it's a problem when I'm struggling with. So I don't have a good answer for that. Sorry.
Okay.
Ishtaarth, you want to take
Yeah,
on?
I mean, my take is absolutely in line with Devaiah, which is it's a fight between performance marketing and brand marketing. And we are in this very dynamic phase as Indian advertisers and marketers, where we actually realize that performance marketing is not everything, and we cannot use performance marketing to be able to judge our brand campaigns. And we're seeing excellent examples of that. Like the IPL has just amped up that kind of thinking, where you're seeing amazing brands just get off the ground, advertise with a really good story without worrying too much about the different segments that they're trying to talk to. The IPL is actually a great example of an event where we are seeing brands like this come together. IPL is one space where that segmentation might matter more than anything else. You have 8.5 million people watching live, and you're dynamically serving ads to them using Hotstar's platform. So nowhere is that. I mean, I'm struggling to think of places where we are seeing that mix of brand marketing and performance marketing actually come closer than ever before. Most importantly, I guess, being very clear with the client on what the objectives of the campaign are. Like, if you want to nudge someone to be able to take an action like buying into your brand, then of course, like, being hyper segmented and speaking to someone in their language will matter. But if you're trying to introduce your brand, or you're trying to reach a very specific geography in the country where they behave a certain way, and you want to just get the gist of your product out there, you want to have that overarching thought. And so segmentation also means many different kinds of creative devices that you can use in different scenarios, and I'm super excited about that possibility, as opposed to just combining both sides of how we're building brands today, which is brand marketing and performance marketing using digital tools.
Cool. I think I have got a new topic for my Twitter thread. I would definitely write about the fight between performance and brand marketing. It's such an interesting.
Please do.
Thank,
Please
yeah,
do. I look forward to it. Thank you.
I will tell you then. Thank you, Abhinav, for the opportunity.
Tag us
Thanks
on.
for answering.
Awesome. Cool. I'll just take the last caller. Before we wind up, we've got a major session planned right ahead of it. I'm taking Yuvraj, and that would be it for the session. Yuvraj, are you on?
Yeah, hi Abhinav, hi Devaiah, hi Ishtaarth. Great session, guys. Thank you so much for this. I have a very generic and a broad question. So, like, where do you guys go to date? What are your learning resources? Like, is it through the
Yuvraj, can't hear you.
Hello?
Repeat yourself.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Now, yes.
Yeah. I'm saying that how do you guys, even till date, learn more about the industry and advertising in specific? Like, is it through the work that you guys do, or there are some resources? Like, where does how does a person like me or a lot of us in the audience reach to a point where, let's say, you guys are?
Hey, okay. I mean, what I generally do is I just consume content, content, because I just feel that if we are in the content business, and I feel like whatever content is like widely working is what like also the audience is kind of looking for, and that's how the communication style is evolving and moving into, right? Like, so I don't like, for example, create on like a short form app, but I kind of consume short form app every day to just make sure that like I know what is happening there, like what challenge is working, what is a dopamine hit that is giving people in that form of in that format of communication. So I just basically just genuinely just consume content, consume social media, and just learn new things. Like, at the minute there is something, I like just I try and keep my mind open, and I try to be less cynical about new industries and new things. Like, for example, like when everyone's talking about blockchain, I'm like, okay, I just like, it starts with FOMO, like I just want to know what this is, right? And I just start consuming more about it and learning more about that. So I think for me, what has worked is like I was a very cynical person before, and I've just tried to be less cynical in the last few years so that I'm more open to the concept of newer ideas succeeding. And I just do that, man, like nothing else.
Thanks for that question. I think strongly believe that everything is a remix, and being obsessed with the world of brands is obviously one part of the equation, but you can be obsessed with the world of media and technology that's informing the world of brands so much more, and just like being on a lot of these platforms and being able to consume a lot is a massive advantage that you're going to have, because these things are changing so quickly, and like I love reading everything from biology to architecture to great design to building great products to what the state of Indian journalism is, just to have like a framework of what's going on in the world out there. That is just, and I keep coming back to this idea of pure motivation. By being able to do something that you like, you'll be able to create things that other people like as well. I've strongly held on to that belief, and it's worked out so far. So hope that you're able to find refuge on the internet, which is massive, and you can always find your space over there. So yeah, I hope you keep looking and you're able to find it.
Oh, that's great, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Awesome people. All right, that's a wrap. Thank you so much, Devaiah, Ishtaarth. Any closing thoughts before these guys hop onto a session that's happening at 8 on another tab? Any closing thoughts? How do you like the app? How do you find the app, Devaiah, after for the second time? I think certain things have changed. The audience.
Yeah, I mean, this is like genuinely good, man. Like, I mean, I'm an Android guy, and I just started Clubhouse three days ago, and I'm not just saying this because I'm here, but I just like this community way too much. Just because that everyone here is really smart. Like, right from the questions to the comments in the comment section, like it's just like having the most smartest people in one place, and just interacting and talking to them and listening from them is just been fascinating. So I mean, I'm an evangelist for scenes always.
We love you too, Devaiah. Love you so much.
Same here.
How about you, Ishtaarth? How was your first experience?
Oh, it was so fun. I wish I changed my profile picture, but I think the chat functionality on top of voice is super interesting. It's so fun, and like you said, the success of something like scenes will depend on your growth and marketing teams working with engineering teams. So I can only hope it gets more performant and that more people are using it, and we can see this vibrant community grow.
And I hope to keep I hope you keep coming back here to see what we're up to and host a few sessions as well, because the people love you. They love you since the Scott days.
Thanks.
Awesome. All right, guys, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for making it, Devaiah, Ishtaarth, and the audience. Now we go attend Raj Shamani's and Shashank's session right below this tab. Take care. Good night. See you.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.